Can we declare it all together? He's a way maker. Come on, stay. Way make. Come on, sing it. From life. My God, that is who you are. Come on, ladies. Can we declare it one more time? Say, way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper. Hey, come on, sing it loud. How is your God? Asayo. Oh, say, way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, life. Come on, say, my God, that is who you are. Hey, that is who you are. Come on, sing it, say, that is who you are. That is who you are. Say, that is, hey, we make it who you are. That is who you are. Come on, sing it, say, that is who you are. Oh, I love this part that says, hey, yes. When we talk about abuse, most of the time, it also happened many times. It doesn't mean that when it happened one time is not an abuse, but the word abuse as a component into the repetition of the mistreatment. Now, when you talk about hidden pandemic, why is it hidden? Because the people that are abused most of the time are not people who express themselves. Type of abuse. Abuse could be physical, when a person force themselves or act physically in a bad way to hurt another person, with the intention to hurt another person. It could also be emotional, when a person hurt another person to frustrate their emotion, and that can be expressed either verbally, either by the way they behave themselves. And another kind of abuse, which is number 3 that I can talk about, is financial abuse, where a person want to control the finance of the other person, or maybe a person is stopping the other person from accessing some finance that belong to them, or in a workplace, for example. And another type of abuse that I can talk about is also about elderly abuse, because elderly are people that are dependent, and it could happen that children abuse they financial mean abuse them emotionally, because they are dependent on them. They take advantage on them.
And I was reading about abuse, and I even heard about the cultural abuse. We are facing this every day, but because we don't know, for us it's normal, it's the culture.
But come to think of it, when we were mentioning the cultural abuse, I'm just taking the example of my family. I remember my mother crying so much because she gave birth to 4 girls. And the family could not take it. They were demanding a boy. They wanted a boy. Then the boy came after the 4th girl. That way my mother, you could see the difference in the house. It's like my father felt empowered to have a boy. I can take my own example. Waiting for 10 years to have children. So I was abused culturally by people who will throw in things, at gathering of women, a mother, Mother's Day, they will tell you cannot be celebrated because you are not yet a mother. Prophetess Ange said very well. It's a perceived power. But we do not have ourselves, or the people who are being abused, the power to voice out the abuse. We let it pass and it become a pandemic. I wanted to keep the word power in mind, because I believe that only power can outbeat power. So we are here, we gathered here, and there is social media, we can go out there and speak to other people, because when we are empowered with knowledge, but also with the resolve and the right tool, we can in one way or another beat abuse.
Let us talk about that physical abuse that a lot of women, especially in church, we are living those kind of things, but because we are in church, we want to cover those kind of things. Let us talk about that physical abuse.
Christians like to put more effort into building pretense than putting effort into being real. It means that I will spend maybe 2 hours putting my makeup instead of spending 2 hours building the real me.
So we will talk first about education. How can we educate our children? What can we tell them? And if you have also practical subjects, practical things that we went through, just share it. And then we will see how can we, what are the different ways that we can have.
Thank you so much, Lady Beth. Speaking of what we should teach our children, there is this statement which comes often on Facebook and says, or Facebook or on statuses of people, teach your daughters that it's okay to come back home when it's not working in their house. I've known women who have remained into relationship for years because they are thinking of their children.
So in us empowering, we need to make sure that we are able to create an environment that is welcoming to people that come out of abusive relationships. And it starts with us being able to empower people like this child that was talking now, or people that are not married, where we are saying that there is no rush. Because some people jump into bad relationships because they are rushing. We are judging them. Why are you 29 and you are not married? Then even when a guy is abusive, you're willing to stay in there because why would I want to be 35? And I'm in the church.
This is one of the things I like a lot about the book of Ephesians, for example, because it's about telling us who we are in Christ. And many times we don't know who we are, and we wait for the society to define who we are, or for the spouse to define who we are. And if the person who you expect, so those kind of definition of who you are, is that same person that abused you, then you don't know who you are anymore. If you don't say that from the young age, it's become difficult when people are adults. Sometimes this is the mistake that parents make. We think that we have to wait when they are grown-ups. But I always say there's no demon for kids and demon for adults. Demons are demons.
So let's teach the next generation not to judge others, to accept people with what they come to tell you at first value, accept first, and then try to empower them. When you reach that point where you know who you are and nobody can touch what you have within you, you have already won the battle.
But the worst thing that we see today, sometimes kids can talk, but adults don't.
Good. Say it again.
Kids can talk, but adults don't.
Say it.
Kids can talk, but adults don't.
Okay, carry on.
Because when adults don't talk, they transfer the abuse to kids. When adults...
Slowly. Say it again.
When adults don't talk, they transfer the abuse to kids. Instead of transferring the values, the treasures that are within, like Pastor has mentioned, they start transferring the abuse without even knowing it.
I have this conversation with a lady. She was telling me that she did not know that while she was allowing an uncle of the family to come into the house and to sleep when he comes from a trip, to come and sleep, she was allowing an abuser to come and rape her daughter. And when she tried to say something, to say like, Mommy, I don't like that uncle. Why? It's your uncle. You must like all the uncles of the family. And, things like that, what we pass on to our children. You must like all the uncles. He's a cool uncle and things. Not taking the time to ask the child, why?
And one of the elements I just want to say, sometimes when the abuse remains too long, people feel comfortable. And they don't look for solution anymore. And anybody who attempt to propose a solution is now perceived as a bad person. Women were the very first person that God said, you need to change the mindset of the people of Israel. And I'm going to tell you why. How? Before they escape not escape, before they leave Egypt, they had the mindset of slavery. God said, women of Israel, go to the women of Egypt. Take their precious clothes.
Amen.
Clothe yourself and your children.
In the hands of the potter, I will take another form. It's in you. That's why I keep on saying you are not what has happened to you. Sometimes things are happening to us, especially abuse. We do not want to talk about it to say it might have happened to you for a reason, to shape you into the woman that you have to become.
And also the point is, I told him, how can you be rude and not a sociable person? Because even your brothers are complaining about you to me. He was telling me like, no, I'm a difficult person. I have that difficult character in me. I know it. And what I want is just a woman who will be enduring my character. You see?
Do you see yourself living with a difficult man?
Not at all.
Do you see yourself being abused verbally because the man is rude?
No.
Do you see yourself getting married with somebody who shut down your dreams?
No.
What are you doing with him?
On that note, before it comes to her, mothers who have got sons, let's teach them to be gentlemen.
Oh, yeah.
Please.
Let's
It's
teach
very
them.
important.
Let's teach them not to touch a girl, not to touch a woman. It starts there. Let's teach them good manners. We focus too much on the women. We have gathering like this. We need also to have gathering for men.
So yeah, I liked what you said about how when women are abused, oftentimes they don't even realize it. And I felt like I've seen it a lot in the household. So with my mom has always been a hard worker, and she puts in so many hours as a nurse, like or night shift every night, and she'll work almost 10 days and feel guilty even when she has to take a rest after like 1 day or 2 days. And for the longest of time when I was younger, I used to want to help her. I'd help her clean and do all these things, and the boys would relax. So I have 2 older brothers. It comes to the point where even when it's time to cook, she'll always look at me first, and I'm like, why do I have to cook? And you even took out that love I had for cooking because you're making it seem as if now it's my duty as a young girl. You're teaching me that from a young age I must learn how to cook for these 2 older brothers of mine who should be knowing that it's just a basic skill.
My prayer and my cry to God is that may every girl child or even boy child have that boldness to say, because of what is happening right now, I'm going to be a better person. Growing up, thinking my father had abandoned me, pushed me in a corner that said I will be in school, I will study, I will never be pregnant. By the time I meet this man, I will have my own house, my own car, and all those things. I still say even today, it's God's grace that I took that decision and not went the other way.
One element that I want to add, we didn't talk about it, it is self-abuse. I am sorry to say that, but what I see is what Mama is doing, it's a self-abuse. And this is something that women need to learn how to do, take care of ourselves.